have it, Stacy?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, just wanted to make sure everything was all set up and give everybody time to make sure that we had the maximum amount of accessibility. But welcome everybody. I am Benjamin Schrader. I am the chair of the State Council for Persons with Disabilities. I'm excited to be here virtually with you today. It's I believe my first one of these events. And so I'm a little nervous, so I hope you'll bear with me. But I'm excited to hear from all of you today. Obviously, I wish we were in person, but we'll make do virtually. And I want to appreciate everybody for getting up and starting their day with us today. It's a choice. So thank you. And I just want to ask John, our director, if you have anything you want to add before we get started.
Well, I just want to say ditto to your words, Benjamin. We're grateful to have you as chair. We're just grateful to have everybody's time this morning, an opportunity to hear from you with the important things that are going on in your departments, in your divisions. That all of those things, everything that we do to work together, works to do one thing, and that's to improve the community, not just the lives of people with disabilities, but the entire community is my belief. So again, thank you for your time. And we look forward to, like Benjamin said, next year, we will be providing food in person, I promise. So thank you. Have a great day today.
All right, thank you. And with that, we'll start with Secretary Nathaniel McQueen of DSHS.
Good morning.
Good morning.
To all our cabinet secretaries, directors, and state partners, I'm pleased to join you today for this annual partnership event. The work of the State Council for Persons with Disabilities and its partners, including all of you who are taking part in this event, is an excellent example of our state agencies coming together to help each other. Your presence here signifies your dedication to the cause that is not just important, but essential. I would like to acknowledge Council Chair, Mr. Schrader, all of our cabinet secretaries, agency directors, state partners, in addition to all of our council members and devoted advocates. I'd also like to recognize State Council Director John McNeil and his team for all the work they do throughout the year. John and his small but mighty team has continued to address staffing challenges and setbacks. However, they still have found a way to meet the mission. I applaud the State Council as they continually unite disability advocates, state agencies, and policymakers to ensure that our state continues to make progress to improve the quality of life for individuals with disabilities and ensure that they are empowered to become whatever they choose. It is a testament to their dedication and commitment to service. The Department of Safety and Homeland Security is proud to support the State Council as it carries out its mission. The Council is an integral part of safety and homeland security and essential to our state. Looking ahead, the Council has exciting initiatives on the horizon. These efforts will further enhance the accessibility, education, employment, and full social inclusion for persons with disabilities. The State Council, with many other state partners, continues to look forward to the phase out of the Jamie Wolf Employment Act. They are currently finalizing the implementation plan requiring under HB 122. The Employment First Oversight Commission is charged with the responsibility of developing and implementing a plan for the phase out and ensuring that the needs of affected providers and employees with disabilities working at less than minimum wage are considered as the phase-out is implemented. The Council and the Oversight Commission look forward to the transition to the new employment opportunities and other meaningful programs that will entitle all Delawareans, including those with disabilities, to earn the same minimum wage. In addition, the Council has been working with the Electronic Accessibility Standards Committee and the other state partners and advocates to develop strategies for improving the access to state government web content and tools for Delawareans with disabilities. The Council is working with DTI and GIC to develop a comprehensive evaluation of state agencies and their compliance with the existing standards. They are in the final stages of acquiring data needed to provide the governor the status of all state agencies. The projected date for completion of the report is January of 2024. I look forward to the forthcoming report on the status of accessibility, web content provided by state agencies, and taking the next steps by transitioning to compliance. In addition, the Council and supporters had the opportunity to attend Governor's signing of House Substitute Bill 1 and HB 193, Concussion Protection and Youth Athletic Activities. The amendment adds the requirement for non-scholastic athletic activity organizations to develop policies and procedures for advising athletes, coaches, officials, parents, and guardians of the signs and symptoms of concussion and explaining the risk of continuing to practice or completing athletic events or activities after sustaining a concussion, as well as providing information about returning to academic and athletic events or activities after sustaining concussions. This was his initiative under the Brain Injury Committee. While these initiatives highlight some of the ongoing work of the State Council, the work is not just about numbers, statistics, or policies. It's about people. The individual who inspire us with their resilience, their achievements, and their dreams. It's about understanding that the value of each person is immeasurable, regardless of their abilities or disabilities. It's about realizing that diversity is not a challenge to overcome, but the strength to be celebrated. The fundamental civil rights for people with disabilities is a cornerstone of what it means to be fully participating member of our society. While we have much work to do, I know that the Council and all of its partners will continue to get it done. I am grateful for you and all of our partners for devoting their time and contributions to supporting the State Council. Your involvement, your dedication, and your partnership are a driving force behind our progress. Thank you all for your continued support of the Council to improve the lives of persons with disabilities. Stay safe, and thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And we'll hear next from Secretary Josette Manning of THSS.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Chairman Schrader. This is my first time as well, so we can be nervous together.
Yes. Sure.
I do have, if we could share our script, great, thank you. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So good morning. Let me start off by introducing myself. My name is Josette Manning, and I am the Cabinet Secretary for the Department of Health and Social Services. I've been here about 3 months, so relatively new to me, although I have worked alongside this division for much of my career. I note that our slide says 2023 Partnership Luncheon. That was wishful thinking on our part, I think. But I'm joined today with my colleagues from several divisions at the department. We have representation from the Division of Substance Abuse and Mental Health, DSAM, the Division of Medicaid and Medical Assistance, DMMA, Developmental Disability Services, DDS, and the Division of Services for Adults with Physical Disabilities, DSAPID, and of course, the Division for the Visually Impaired, DVI. And they will, representatives from those divisions will be speaking and do a deeper dive on some of the initiatives that each of those divisions are doing. But I did want to provide just a few high-level updates on some of the key initiatives and some of the collaboration between the divisions that has been going on at the department. Next slide, please. First, I'd like to highlight our Reimagining Service Delivery Initiative. This is a priority of Governor Carney's Family Services Cabinet Council, and it is being led by Deputy Secretary Daniel Walker and our leaders at the Division of State Service Centers. The goal of this project is to make it easier to access DHSS services, and we want to ensure all social services offered to Delawareans are coordinated, accessible, person-centered, and adequately funded. Since December 2021, we have engaged with DHSS frontline staff, community partners, and service users by using interviews, surveys, and participatory research to identify exactly what the challenges and gaps are in the process. We went through a community engagement phase to then confirm those challenges that we're facing and identify solutions to those challenges. In July of 2023, DHSS hosted 4 public town halls across the state to share the findings of the Reimagining Service Delivery Initiative, to discuss the upcoming improvements and, most importantly, to get feedback from the community. I'm pleased to share that we are now in the phase where we are actually testing and implementing some of those solutions that were suggested at some of those town halls and over the course of this process. And we have designed solutions with 5 focus areas in mind: client service delivery, employees, technology, facilities, and meeting evolving client needs. Clients and communities can stay engaged throughout this process to help us make changes that work for them by sending questions or comments to stateservicecommunity@delaware.gov. We can drop that in the chat as well for folks. I can assure you that we will continue to listen to the community as this effort moves forward and we continue on our journey of reimagining service delivery. I apologize for the lawnmowers outside, if everybody can hear those. It's always on a Monday at the state of Delaware. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you, sorry. This summer, we also marked the 1-year anniversary of the transition to an easy to remember 3-digit suicide prevention lifeline, 988. It is a number that we hope will change and save lives. There are options for texting, and online chat, and they are rapidly expanding, which is great because we know that lots of folks prefer that method of communication. Anyone can call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org for themselves, or if they're worried about someone else who they believe may need support. Delaware successfully transitioned to 988 in 2022 with 24/7, 365-day coverage across all 3 counties. And during the first year, Delaware received 5,374 calls seeking mental health and suicidal crisis support. Of those, 3,937, about 73%, were answered in state, while 854 calls, about 16%, were redirected to a national backup center. In addition, 50 calls to 988 required an activation of 911, and 34 calls involved a suicide attempt in progress. You can learn more about Delaware's transition on our website at de.gov/988. I'd now like to briefly highlight several projects we are working on as we move into the fall. Actually, we're kind of in the fall, so as we proceed through the fall. First, flu season is among us. We urge you and your loved ones to get your flu shot to prepare. The flu vaccine is readily available for everyone 6 months and older at primary care providers, pharmacies, clinics, and federally qualified health centers. For those who are uninsured or underinsured, the flu vaccine is available for free at our public health clinics. Visit flu.delaware.gov for more information. The Division of Public Health will once again report flu data on a dashboard located on our My Healthy Community website, and that dashboard is updated weekly. Updated COVID-19 vaccines from Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna were also recently rolled out in response to the emergence of new variants of the COVID-19 virus. A full listing of vaccine locations is posted on www.vaccines.gov. Per the CDC, vaccination remains the best protection against COVID-19 related hospitalization and death, and reduces the chance of suffering from long COVID. I'd like to also take this opportunity to offer a reminder about our Medicaid renewals. Every state, including Delaware, resumed determining individuals' Medicaid eligibility at the conclusion of the national public health emergency in April. This is a 12 to 14-month process, and we do not want anyone who is eligible for Medicaid to be disenrolled. And the best way to prevent that is to ensure that we have your correct contact information at our offices. So please encourage others and ensure that your contact information is correct. Members will then receive notices through various avenues such as letters, text messages, emails, phone calls, and outreach from the managed care organizations. DMMA Acting Director Ted Marmagos will be presenting more in depth and break down the process later this morning. Finally, what I would like to mention is the DHS is at the beginning of stages of what will likely be a 3-year process of redesigning our website. The current website is divided by division, and we are looking to move towards a more service-based design that prioritizes the informational needs of individual Delawareans and their families. A redesigned, user-friendly website is not solely about a change in the website's architecture. It is truly about content and making sure it's accessible to all. And that will be at the forefront of our minds as we go through that process. Before I turn things back over to my colleagues, there are just a few initiatives that involve multiple divisions and speak to our spirit of enhanced collaboration, both internally and externally. And you'll hear more about these exciting efforts from our directors in their presentations. But just to touch on them very briefly, DMMA has facilitated access to additional funding through increases to the federal Medicaid assistance percentage, or FMAP, for certain Medicaid expenditures for home and community-based services. This has supported all of our divisions to make important investments in the workforce with a focus on retention and recruitment to build a high-quality network of providers. This funding has also allowed for added enhancements to the capacity, access, and promotion of home and community-based services, while strengthening our delivery system and expanding models of care. Another collaboration, DSAM is supporting DSAPID's Delaware Hospital for the Chronically Ill with a pilot peer program for residents, which both the residents and the staff have been extremely excited about. Triple DS and DSAPID are also collaborating on aging caregiver supports. And we also have DVI and DSAPID working together around assistive technology available for older adults with visual impairments. And these are just a few of the things that are going on at the department. And as I said, you will be hearing more detailed information from the directors when they present. I want to thank everyone for having us here today, giving us this opportunity to share some of the exciting things that are going on at the department. And I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Secretary Manning, and I'm delighted to say, well, you did a great job. I unfortunately am showing that it is my first time, and I forgot to ask if anybody has questions for Secretary McQueen. So if we can now take this time, does anybody have questions for either Secretaries McQueen or Manning? Feel free to ask now. I'm so sorry.
It's a little hard to see, but I don't see any hands raised. So maybe you didn't mess up too
Yeah,
badly, because I don't think they had questions.
maybe I just could read everybody's mind. We'll go with that. We'll go with that. Okay, so if there are no questions, I believe we will move on to Secretary Sean Garvin.
Good morning, everyone, and I do apologize. There's a big tree. As bad as Josette's lawn cutting is, I've got a big tree that's coming down, and they just decided to start grinding. So I went to my headset to hopefully cut down on some of the cross noise. So if there are any issues, please give me a thumbs up, and I will try to mute it even more. Really appreciate being on, Ben, Carol, and my colleagues in the cabinet and other state leaders. I've had the pleasure of being able to participate in the State Council for Persons with Disabilities partnership event. Maybe almost every year I've been secretary. First couple we got to do in person and a nice lunch and everything else, and we obviously have pivoted to the virtual, and hopefully next year we'll be able to get everybody back in person. I do have Janella Sapp, my executive assistant, running the PowerPoint, so hopefully it will go fairly smoothly this Monday morning. I want to thank you for inviting me to talk about what we have going on in DENREC and inclusive services and accessibility for outdoor experiences that our agency offers for persons with disabilities. As I hope all of you know, Delaware is home to some of the country's most scenic wildlife areas and state parks, offering a panoramic views ranging from the northern hills and bayshore marshes to our resort beaches and inland waterways. Each is unique, creating a different experience and opportunities for lasting memories with recreational activities like fishing, hunting, birding, boating, and more. At DENREC, we are committed to providing exceptional recreational opportunities for visitors of all abilities so that everyone can enjoy all that Delaware has to offer. DENREC owns and manages 17 state parks and 20 wildlife areas, which include dozens of public use facilities. As we maintain and upgrade these facilities, our annual budget includes a wide range of projects that benefits the visitors who enjoy our public use facilities. And we are planning for the future. For example, the Division of Parks and Recreation has a strategic plan that calls for adding 75 new accessible amenities to be put in place through 2026. Today, statewide persons with disabilities who visit our parks, wildlife areas, and other public facilities can enjoy 19 dedicated deer stands and 10 waterfowl blinds with state wildlife areas for use with hunters with disabilities, 17 ADA compliant boat ramps, and 10 ADA compliant fishing piers to access tidal water fishing areas, a wide variety of state park campground facilities providing access for all abilities, from playgrounds to bathhouses to cabins, and many miles of accessible trails. Since 2014, we have issued more than 200 free permits for use of accessible deer blinds and waterfowl blinds, which an average about 20 new applications per year. Additionally, 127 permits allowing hunters to hunt from a motorized vehicle have been issued, averaging 3 to 5 new requests each year. And recently completed activities that will benefit hunters with disabilities include creation of an additional accessible hunting location at Augustine and Cedar Swamp wildlife areas with a concrete pad and accessible portable restrooms also established at Cedar Swamp. DENREC's Division of Fish and Wildlife has recently completed several new or updated accessible boating facilities, including the recent construction of the 7th Street boat ramp in Wilmington. 7th Street is a wonderful access point to the Delaware River, and boaters include an accessible fishing pier for shoreline anglers, and we're going to do something a little later this month to highlight that area. Other recently built or refurbished boat ramps with accessible features include the Little Creek Boat Ramp and Fishing Pier, a popular facility located east of Dover that includes accessible parking, pier, sidewalk, and portable restrooms. The Woodlawn Wharf facility, located near the historic Woodlawn Ferry on the Nanticoke River in Sussex County, includes an accessible parking, pathways, bench, boat, dock, shoreline fishing access, and canoe and kayak launch. I'm going to slow down so the pictures can load. Garrison's Lake in Dover, a popular fishing area near Smyrna that features a 140-foot long accessible footbridge over the spillway. Wegmans Pond in Milton is a favorite location for bass fishing and bass tournaments. And the refurbished Phillips Landing boat ramp in Laurel. Current boat ramp projects include replacing the Scotland Landing boat ramp near Magnolia this winter, replacing the Records Pond ramp in Laurel next spring, and making improvements to the Mulberry Landing parking lot in Frankfurt. All of these projects are expected to be completed for the 2024 boating and fishing seasons. Our Accessible Aquatic Resource Education Center east of Smyrna included parking improvements are underway to provide better access to the facility's outdoor education area in support of aquatic education program.
Hey, how's it going? Good, thanks.
Somebody may have to mute.
Yeah, the computer's working like a breeze, just the phone.
I got her muted. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Improvements include safer access to parking for school buses and other vehicles that accommodate students and adults with disability, plus a pedestrian crosswalk and an accessible connector path from the parking area to the education pavilion. Also, plans are nearly completed to rehabilitate the facility's 900-foot tidal marsh boardwalk. This project will include enhancing the boardwalk to make it easier to navigate for people with mobility challenges. An existing marsh level observation platform along the boardwalk will also be improved to reduce the slope of the access ramp and add handrails. Also last year, a new canoe and kayak launch was installed at Mallard Pond to create opportunities for fishing instruction, skill improvement, and general recreations for persons with disabilities. At the Assawoman Wildlife Area near Frankfurt and Ocean View, designs are complete for a new fully accessible wildlife viewing tower. The facility will include an elevated boardwalk, accessible parking, and interpretive signs with completion anticipated in 2024. In Kent County at Milford Neck Wildlife Areas near Milford, designs are underway for the accessible Woodland Trail, a boardwalk ramp and platform overlooking the coastal wetlands. Two other recent Delaware Bayshore projects feature specifically designed accessibility for bird watchers and visitors with disabilities. A two-level observation tower at Little Creek Wildlife Area provides a sweeping view of the Delaware Bay with its fully accessible lower level parking and boardwalk trails designed to maximize opportunities for visitors with disabilities. The tower includes a unique railing design and an expanded tow box on the lower level to allow disabled visitors to move closer to the rails and maximize the viewable area. The Augustine Wildlife Area's Port Penn track features an accessible wildlife viewing platform with accessible parking, trail, and boardwalk. Its platforms featured an innovative see-through viewing railing developed with input from Yes You Can USA, Center for Adaptive Sports, Fitness, and Recreation. Also part of the Augustine Wildlife Area, the Ashton Track has an at-grade compact stone dust trail and viewing deck on an elevated viewing locations with benches and guardrails, offering a spectacular bayshore view of the surrounding marsh. Deck access also includes an accessible concrete pad, sidewalk, and portable toilet. The DENREC Division of Parks and Recreation aims to invite people of all abilities to experience the natural and cultural resources in Delaware State Parks. All capital projects go through the Architectural Accessibility Board, and the division is continuously learning from the community on how to further improve. Delaware State Park offers a multitude of accessible options like kayak launches, campsites, cabins, fishing piers, hay wagons, deer hunting stands, docks, ramps, mobility mats at State Park, beach crossings, and beach wheelchairs. The parks also offer interpretive waysides, which are panels along trails with braille or tactile components. This year, we completed a variety of accessible projects with more under construction or in design phases. A good example is the now completed World War II Tower 3 in Delaware Seashore State Park along Route 1. For visitors unable to climb the tower's nearly 100 steps to the top, the site provides a virtual experience at the base of the tower so they can experience the views from the top. Also, the tower's ocean parking lot was improved for ADA parking, and the ramp to the bathhouse was redesigned. Some of the more recent accessibility upgrades in our state parks include the following. More beach wheelchairs and mobility mats are available for wheelchair users once they get to the sand in our ocean state parks. And for those who want to wash the sand off, Cape Henlopen State Park now offers an ADA pole showers at its main beaches, Gordon's Pond, and Herring Point areas. Construction of an ADA Heronry Overlook platform at Fort Delaware State Park on Pea Patch Island. A ramp to access the Lovering Avenue courts in Wilmington, where pickleball, basketball, and bocce ball are often played. ADA fire rings, picnic tables, and grills were replaced throughout the state parks. The Brandywine Zoo, one of the most popular places you can visit now, has an ADA-compliant bathrooms. Killen Pond State Park recently opened its elevated boardwalk that runs from the boat rental area to the boat ramp and offers accessible fishing opportunities. And soon visitors will start seeing ADA way signs that incorporate braille, tactical elements, and virtual experiences in many of the parks. Today, I've outlined several of our infrastructure projects to improve accessibility, but our work does not stop there. We need to tell people about it. So here are a few examples of how we are doing that. We recently published the article for our Outdoor Delaware online magazine titled To Accessibility and Beyond. It includes interviews with advocates and visitors with disability about their experience with our accessible amenities. You can read about it at de.delaware.gov/outdoor-delaware. In our digital spaces, we are sharing content with accessibility in mind. For example, we now include alt text for photo published on the web and on social media. We also join national campaigns like National Birdability Week, engaging in the conservation about how we can help all Delaware enjoy the outdoors. And coming soon, we're producing a video to reach and engage even more Delawareans. I hope you check all of these things out. We're excited about all we have accomplished in our Delaware State Parks, campgrounds, wildlife areas, boating and fishing access areas, and other public facilities to provide access for all abilities, but we are not finished. I look forward to sharing our progress again next year. Again, as always, thank you for inviting me and the partnership that we have and continue to have. And I offer everyone who is listening to get out to one of our state parks or wildlife areas. And when you do, if you see things that you think we can improve on, please let us know. Thanks.
Thank you, Secretary Garvin. As a relatively new Delawarean, I'm super fascinated by all this stuff and really grateful for all your work. Does anybody have any questions for Secretary Garvin?
If I may, Benjamin, John McNeil, I just wanted to say, Secretary Garvin, with regards to actual infrastructure and really doing things as an initiative of of almost volunteering compliance, as opposed to sometimes the pulling teeth that we feel that we have to do from time to time with getting things, making things accessible. I really have to congratulate you. I don't, with, like I said, with regards to infrastructure, I don't know of too many agencies in the area, not just in our state, but in the tri-state area, that have done as much to improve accessibility to people with disabilities and really emphasize that disability is more about just the healthcare issues and the other issues that we have to deal with, but really being a part of the community. And your leadership is has certainly shown that you are a partner in community inclusion, and we're just grateful for all that your group has done.
John, I appreciate that, but the credit goes to the incredible and passionate staff we have here in the department. I mean, this stuff just is part of their thought process. It's part of the way they go about doing their business and making sure that we saw through the pandemic, the massive increase in people coming to our parks and our wildlife areas, because it was really the only thing that was open and the only thing that we could do. And so there's a whole new set of folks who are experiencing our parks and wildlife areas. And every time there's some kind of project or we're looking to make improvements, the first thing the staff is thinking is, how do we make it accessible to all? And so I appreciate your kind words, and the credit goes to all the incredible staff here in the department.
Deborah Yancey. Oh, wait, I'm muted.
No, you're not.
I see Deborah Yancey has a question, and so we'll go to her, and then we'll go to Lloyd Schultz.
And Linda Heller has her
Oh,
actual,
yeah, I think
not virtual hand up. So I
I
want to make
think
sure she
Linda
doesn't
was
get missed.
first, so we'll go to Linda, then Deborah, and then Lloyd. I'm sorry. So Linda, take it away.
That you're still on.
You're still
mute.
muted, Linda. No, we still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Now
Yes.
we can. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to make a comment about Secretary Garvin's excellent presentation, and commend his department on everything he's done with accessibility, especially for people with physical disabilities and also people with visual disabilities. I'm on the council representing deaf and hard of hearing people across the state with the Hearing Loss Association of Delaware, which is a nonprofit agency that supports, educates, and advocates for people for children and adults who are deaf and hard of hearing. And I want to point out that for people with hearing loss, we still have, I think, a significant way to go in terms of accessibility of the parks and recreation. And I think it's great what we've done. And I certainly support anything we can do to help any person with any kind of disability. So when it comes to hearing disability, I would like to encourage your staff to look into hearing accessibility. I have been on a tour of some of the historic homes, for example, in Delaware. And when I go, I have difficulty hearing in the tour. And we've had other people in our organization say the same thing. So we need to have accessibility, and that would be something as simple and cheap as a transcript for a tour. So if there's a tour guide that gives the same speech, over and over again, could we not have it written out? And so that they could read it while the person is talking and take it home. And keep in mind that what is good for a deaf and hard of hearing person, in this case, a transcript would also be good for people with learning disabilities, developmental disabilities, autism spectrum disorders, and also people of a foreign language. So there's a lot of things we could do in terms of the videos you have online, presentations at conferences or special programs you offer. All of these, whenever they are planned, I think a step forward, a great step forward would be just to think about what deaf and hard of hearing people would need, whether they have a hearing aid, whether they sign, or whether they have a cochlear implant, trying to make it easier for them to participate in whatever program or organization. There are many ways to make videos accessible. There are apps now, some wonderful apps for people. There is, of course, written word and transcripts, and there are captioning options now. And so many of the accommodations for people who are deaf and hard of hearing come with little or no cost. So thank you for your presentation, and the Hearing Loss Association of Delaware is ready to assist you in any way that we can. And keep on with your great work. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. And I can see Carol is doing a little bit of a time check in her head, so I'm going to try to answer very quickly. And I think you raised a lot of very good points, and a lot of the historical stuff is actually throughout the state. Other departments have it, so I'll make sure that we pass that along. I know we in the state, even as we're looking at how we serve our underserved and overburdened communities and the translation side of things into other language, we're building up that infrastructure so we have the ability to do that, more across the board. But I think you provided a number of really good points, and we'll follow up on that. Thank you.
All right. I believe next we have Deborah Yancey and then Lloyd.
Thank you. And my name is Deborah Yancey, and I'm the statewide ADA coordinator. I want to commend all the first three speakers for sharing some of your resources and what improvements you're doing. I work with I do Title I, so I work with employees, but I also receive requests or comments or questions from the Title II side of things as well. And the one thing I want to ask or recommend, I'm not sure which it is I'm like a resource as far as, obviously I don't know everyone's ins and outs and everything that's offered, and just really I just want to implore that you all pump it up on your websites, because that's where I go in terms of, like, if someone calls me or emails, I have a ADA concerns mailbox. If I get those type of things, the first thing I want to go to, I don't want to necessarily bother anybody if I don't have to, but I will, and I do. But if, just really highlight the things, all this great stuff and all these, enhancements and wonderful things you're doing, I definitely like to see more on your websites that's clear, that like accessibility improvements or whatever it is, because it's important. And if I'm needing to look for it, then a lot of people who go to your sites will see it as well. So I just want to throw that out there.
Thanks.
Thank you. And quickly we'll go to Lloyd.
Okay, thank you, Benjamin. Again, echo your presentation was very good. A lot of good things happening. I just want to recommend that bus stops be considered at your location. So you may want to get together with the start training folks and with your parks and recreation folks or whatever to coordinate getting some more bus stops with people with disabilities as well as the general public can take advantage of the opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Lloyd. I will follow up on that. I know there's been some conversations over time as it relates to bus stops. I think some of the complications are just where current bus routes are, but we'll have further conversations on that.
Thank you, Secretary Garvin. I have to say that, as Benjamin already mentioned, we're fairly new to Delaware. So when people ask us how we have found the state accessibility wise, you are the first thing I talk about. DNREC is hands down, and we've lived all around this country. I've never seen anything like the resources that you pour into making sure my family and all families in Delaware can enjoy the state parks, and we are very grateful.
Yeah, it's really wonderful, fascinating stuff. All right.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
We could spend all day singing Secretary Garvin's praises, but I'm sure he and all of us have other things to do. So on that note, here, sorry, I lost the on that note, we next have Secretary Deb.
Director.
Director.
He's promoting you, Deb.
Yeah.
No, I like it. Sorry about that.
We'll hear from Deb Talley. Director Deb Talley. Thank you. Sorry.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to share my own screen, so I apologize in advance if I mess things up. So let me start my slideshow. Can everybody see my screen? Okay, good. So I'm Debbie Talley Bean. I'm not the cabinet secretary. I am the director for the division for the visually impaired, and I'm a little tongue-tied for some reason. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be part of this event. And I especially wish to thank the State Council for Persons with Disabilities for inviting me to speak today. I'm excited to share some highlights from last year and some plans for what DVI will be doing this year. I find it sometimes very helpful to give a quick overview of what DVI does, because people sometimes get confused. So our mission is to provide educational, vocational, and technical support to empower and foster independence for Delawareans with visual impairments. We strive to promote health and well-being by reducing or eliminating barriers to lifelong personal independence because of a lack of vision. We offer a holistic, integrated service approach, which is available to individuals across their lifespan. DVI has provided services to tens of thousands of Delawareans with visual impairments over the years. I can comfortably say that because we are the oldest state agency. We work with our consumers in many ways, but our core focus is to provide the tools necessary for an independent life. So we have three core services. Education. This is a partnership with Department of Education, and DVI has teachers with visually impaired who provide itinerant educational services and Braille instruction to children from birth through age 22 in public, charter, private, and homeschool settings. The education program is also responsible for adapting textbooks and school materials, as well as providing assistive technology for students who need in order to be successful. This is made possible through the DVI Instructional Materials and Resource Center, which is a production operation and library for accessible instructional materials. And I'm going to revisit that in a little bit. Vocational rehabilitation. The DVI VR is the second VR agency in Delaware. There's two. There's 22 states with 2 VR agencies, and the rest are combined. But VR General is one of our major partners. The difference is that DVI provides VR services only to people with visual impairments. We provide individualized, comprehensive career preparation and placement beginning at age 14. Services include pre-employment transition services, post-secondary education and training support, assistive technology equipment and training, career advancement, and entrepreneurial opportunities. Independent living. DVI maximizes independence by teaching people to function independently at home and in the community. From teaching teens skills needed to live in a dorm room to enhancing a senior's ability to age in place, DVI's vision rehabilitation specialists provide training in basic functions such as cooking, organization, and doing laundry. They go into people's homes and they put adaptive materials onto appliances so that they can learn how to function while losing vision. Additionally, we offer several supplemental services, and these can touch all of our programs. So assistive technology, we have trainers who work with people in person or virtually to learn how to use their assistive technology devices or to enhance their skills and maximize the use of equipment. Orientation and mobility is, we have certified orientation mobility specialists who provide instruction on how to travel safely and independently in schools, community, and work environments. And vision clinics. We partner with local vision medical experts to provide clinics to children in need of glasses and consumers who would benefit from low vision evaluations. So some quick overview of this year and where we're at. DVI maintains a registry of, right now it's around 3,300 people who meet our eligibility criteria. As you can see by the statistics, 64% of this group are ages 55 and older. And of these, all have severe visual impairments, many have health concerns, and a lot live alone. Although some people on the registry actively receive services, most are provided regular communication, community resources, referrals, invitations to workshops and events. Our staff assist with crisis situations and collaborate with other DHSS divisions, state agencies, and community partners to assist with everything from wellness checks to emergency housing placements. Okay, hold on. All right. Last year, DVI provided direct services fiscal year 23. We provided direct services to over 800 people whose ages range from 1 to 102. We double checked the 102 and that person received a new piece of equipment during fiscal year 23. We continue to see a steady increase in people served, and according to census data, we anticipate a surge in those 55 and older with visual impairments, especially in Kent and Sussex County. We also anticipate that this generation will be more familiar with technology, thus creating a greater need for independent living and assistive technology services. All right. I wanted to highlight a few of our accomplishments over the past year. We have been active, DVI has been, let me start this from what I wrote. Since the passing of HB 122, during FY22, DVI has been actively engaged in the work to eliminate subminimum wages in Delaware. The implementation group is situated under the Employment First Oversight Commission, which is a commission of the State Council for Persons with Disabilities. The work group developed a multifaceted plan to improve community integrated employment outcomes for people with the most severe disabilities. The initiative included an MOU with key partners, including DVR, DOE, DVDS, and DVI, to foster infrastructure changes and improve collaboration among state agencies. Thanks to DVR and Alicia Jenkins, the group was awarded grant funds from the U.S. Department of Labor National Expansion of Employment Opportunities, or NEON, which is a fun name, which provided a subject matter expert to assist with the project. We've also been actively engaged in initiatives to promote the employment of people with disabilities. One way is the Employment Network Program, which is a work experience program created with the Employment First Oversight Commission, DVI, DVR, and DHR, Department of Human Resources, to provide work experience opportunities for people with disabilities. This program was designed to allow people with disabilities to gain valuable employment-based knowledge and experience within varied state government career paths. Program launched in 23, and DVI offered an experience to a consumer and submitted others to be placed throughout the state. Additionally, we utilized the selective placement process to onboard members of the VR team and encourage all hiring managers to take advantage of this valuable resource. So I'd say 2 years ago, we embarked on a organizational development and continuous improvement projects. And during the past year, we had all of our leadership trained and coached in outcomes management. And that included developing logic models and creating outcomes for programs. So we continue to do that training throughout the year. We now have a fully developed system and we're in the process of creating ways in which to collect the data. So we hope to launch that very soon, but it's a big accomplishment because if anyone knows outcomes management, it can be a little confusing, and it's a great way to collect data, show the impact of the programs, and find the gaps so that you can make improvements. All right, so DVI completed the second year of our strategic plan during the last quarter of FY22. 23. Strategic goal implementation teams continue to work on initiatives to improve communication, train staff in person-centered service delivery approach, and improve data integrity throughout most of the year. Unfortunately, though, due to staffing shortages, we had to push pause it was the last quarter of 23. We anticipate resuming the plan during the next quarter. And this ongoing process will ultimately strengthen our infrastructure so we can effectively address the social inequalities of blindness and visual impairments. Throughout the past fiscal year, we continue to enhance our vocational rehabilitation program, and we had a lot of priorities that needed to be accomplished. So throughout 22 and 23, we worked really hard to improve our relationships with our federal partners, and we recently just completed all policies and procedures for our VR program and the fiscal piece of it too. When we reported this last year, we had some of them done. Now they are all updated and have been approved by our federal partners. In addition to that, all of our staff have been trained. That includes the fiscal staff and our program staff, and we continue to develop ongoing training opportunities for them. We feel confident that this extensive process will help to maximize services for job seekers and minimize the chance of future reporting mistakes. We also coordinated additional sensitivity training for our staff and VR vendors. This we started last year and continued into fiscal year 23. Once again, the training was well attended and very well received. The intention is to ensure that our vendors understand guided techniques and create opportunities for VR and vendor staff to network. So I mentioned I was going to circle back to our instructional material and resource center. So did you know that the cost of purchasing a single book in Braille can range from $2,500 to $30,000, sometimes even more, but up to $30,000. Instead of purchasing school materials, DVI converts and produces most materials through the Men with a Message initiative, which is made possible through a partnership with the Department of Corrections. Men with a Message is housed at Vaughn Correctional Facility. It employs 12 inmates who become certified transcribers after undergoing vigorous training through the Library of Congress. DVI and the Department of Corrections staff coordinate and oversee the work being done at the prison. Not only does this amazing program save thousands of dollars and provide critical materials for students, but it also helps provide valuable job training that can be helpful in reducing recidivism after community re-entrance. For a few years, DVI was experiencing a lot of turnover in this program. Inmates were choosing to leave for easier jobs with equal pay, and recruiting was becoming extremely challenging. So we requested funds to increase the hourly rate and improve recruitment. This was not a lot of money, as transcribers' earning potential is limited. However, the DHSS provided us with the additional $8,000. I'm ashamed to say that that's all it was per year dedicated to their hourly rates, and it paid off. By the end of fiscal year 23, the program was back to full staffing complement, with several transcribers having completed training. In fact, a man with a message Braille transcriber recently joined our IMRC team as a casual seasonal Braille transcriber. DVI never employed a transcriber before in the past, and the addition to the team has been incredibly helpful as he can quickly produce last-minute materials for teachers. During the 22-23 school year, to give you an idea, our IMRC fulfilled 631 orders for textbooks, workbooks, and materials. This is an increase of 9.3% from the year before, and it just continues to go up. They format in Braille, large print, digital, and audio. And also during the earlier part of 23, they managed to complete all the orders despite a difficult staffing shortage that the Department of Corrections was faced with that forced them to close the building where our transcribers work. So we had to do a lot of pivoting last summer. All right. Case management system. During the past year, we put a lot of focus on exploring new case management systems. This might seem like no one would care, but believe me when I say it is so important, because ours is antiquated, no longer supported by the system that made it. And it's really challenging to make sure we have accurate data. We do a lot of manual tracking of things. So this is a big deal for us. These efforts include the development of a business case and issuing a request for information, so that we then interviewed vendors and went through several demonstrations. Some other updates in education. DVI continues to experience a teacher turnover. We had 2 teachers of the visually impaired who left the division during FY23. But aggressive recruiting has helped us to stabilize the shortages, as since then we recruited a recent graduate with her TVI certification, and we're doing student teaching for an upcoming Kutztown graduate who lives in Sussex County. We currently have 5 teachers participating in the alternate route to certification program, and 1 is in her last semester. And in case you don't know, there's a staffing shortage for everyone these days, but teachers of the visually impaired and our certified orientation and mobility specialists have always faced a national critical shortage. It's just not, because it's a low incidence population, there's not a lot of people who are aware. So the department has created unique and creative ways for us to recruit special education teachers and help them through school. And then student engagement. We had 41 students and youth attend our 4 programs that DVI sponsored throughout the year. They engaged in activities designed for the expanded core curriculum and pre-employment transition skills through events such as the Children's Beach House in Lewis, Space Camp in Alabama, and Envision Level Up in Kansas. All right. Assistive Technology Training Center. The training center staff are utilizing an online training service. This is new. It's called Inclusive, which specializes in train the trainer courses specifically for teaching people who are blind. Trainers are in the process of taking a 200-hour course to develop proficiency in JAWS, which is a very popular screen reader, and a 100-hour course to develop proficiency with accessibility analysis. We also can use this system for some of our consumers if we want to also, and they can, depending on where they're at, there's other things that are available beyond JAWS. The training center also hosted training for all TVIs in the state. That would be our TVIs and the handful of school districts who have their own, and their students, to introduce them to a product called Mountbatten. Mountbatten is a complete Braille learning center for children and their teachers. And they also hosted a train the trainer workshop in March of 23 It focused on the OrCam MyEye and OrCam Read for the Training and Technology Independent Living Services team. And OrCam are special glasses with a camera that is amazing. It uses AI to tell people what's in their surroundings. Independent living. So during fiscal year 22, DVI partnered with DSAPIT on a pilot initiative on the need for additional types of assistive technology for people age 60 and over with visual impairments. Through this initiative, DSAPIT provided DVI with funds to purchase equipment that cost more than federal funds in the ILS program supported. The pilot ultimately demonstrated the need for additional funds and supported the DVI budget request for $46,000 to purchase equipment for people age 55 and older. Awarded in fiscal year 23, the new funds combined with the DSAPIT funds have provided more than 40 older blind participants access to assistive technology that would otherwise be unattainable due to financial constraints. The independent living administrator worked with the team to streamline a process for determining eligibility and purchasing equipment. And just so you know, this is probably our least funded program. And in the past, a lot of people did not have technical savviness. So they might have been afforded a inexpensive handheld non-digital magnifier. Could have just been a magnifier with a light or things like that, or talking clock. And what we're finding is that people now, as they age, do have some ability to use a smartphone or an iPad or some sort of more advanced technology. So we're trying to help people learn and use better equipment so that they can be more independent. Let's see. We also partnered in the past year at least 3 times with the state service centers and DSAPIT to assist people who were facing housing crises. This is housing, I'm sure you know, is the big thing. And we don't have a very large population, but when people are facing an emergency in their housing situation, we're fortunate that we can reach out to our sister divisions and help people find someplace to live. So looking ahead, we want to continue to address our staffing challenges. I mentioned that there's 5 teachers in school, and that we've always faced a national shortage for teachers and O&M specialists. We're fortunate to have an amazing team of educators who actively recruit their peers. They work together to ensure that all of our children have services. In addition to our educators, DVI also experienced staffing challenges that rippled throughout the entire division in 23. We continue to recruit and utilize state staffing vendors. We found some fantastic new employees, 2 outstanding temps through a state vendor, and a contracted orientation and mobility specialist. Our technology trainers will be expanding their menu of service to include training. Oops, that's not supposed to be in there. Sorry, guys. All right. Organizational development, I mentioned earlier. We're looking forward to furthering the critical initiatives, including leadership development, structural enhancements, strategic planning, outcomes management training, and implementation, and much more. Accessibility for all. I really appreciate all the accessibility initiatives that have been talked about earlier, and DNREC has been amazing, and I've been fortunate to see some of the prototypes before they went out, and I just think it's so incredible what they're doing. We look forward to working with our state partners to promote accessible documents and websites for people with visual impairments and print disabilities. We're going to continue to enhance our consumer relationships. Leadership has been strengthening relationships with the people we serve. We intend to continue to build upon the progress we've made over the past 2 years. We want to explore expansion of our independent living program. We're looking at the need for additional staff to address the population growth in Kent and Sussex counties, and the need to added technology to enhance the AT initiative that started last year. And we're exploring an upgrade to our case management system. So as I mentioned, we've done our due diligence, and the next steps is to secure funds. So thank you, and that is thank you in Braille. Thank you for having me here today and for the continued partnership with the Statewide Council for Persons with Disabilities. Happy to answer any questions.
Right, thank you, Director. I gotta make sure I get that right. And does anybody have any questions for Debbie?
I get off easy. Thank you.
All right, well.
Oh, wait.
Linda has her hand up.
Linda has her hand up. All right, Linda, if you want to unmute yourself.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yes, Director Daly, thank you so much for the presentation. Very helpful, very informative, and wow, it looks like you're making so much progress on a lot of different fronts. So thank you so much for all that you're doing for blind people throughout the state. As you know, we in Delaware do not have a division for deaf and hard of hearing people. We do have wonderful Loretta Sarro within a state division with her as a staff member and an interpreter for her and a secretary. So that's what deaf and hard of hearing people have in the state. And we look forward to the day when the state treats deaf and hard of hearing people within state government equally with blind people and people with visual impairment. But my question to Debbie is about deaf and blind people. I don't know about your division, but our agency is seeing increasing numbers of calls from people with dual sensory disorder, meaning they are deaf and or blind, or hard of hearing and or blind, or could be low vision or some combination of the two. So my question is, when it comes to this population, which we're seeing more of, first of all, could your division, or does it now, track people in their intake form as to whether they have a hearing loss or whether they are using a hearing aid or anything like that? Could we track that so we are doing a better job of finding out who has dual sensory disorder and how we might work together to serve both people who are blind or low vision and also have are deaf or hard of hearing? So that is one question that I had, and I commend your division for embedding in every school district some kind of contact expertise or teacher and training regular teachers in the school systems to work with children who are deaf and blind. I think that is a model that we could follow for deaf and hard of hearing children in the schools across the state too, to make every deaf and hard of hearing child, whenever possible, whenever it's the best thing for them, to go to their regular school district. So I think that would be great if Delaware could look towards that model. And so I just wanted to really point out that, plus have you look at the issue of the increasing population that we have for deaf and blind people, and also looking at the services within the public schools for children that need transition services, and how we can do a better job in the transition service area too for these children that are in the public school that are not just, that are that have a hearing loss also, or have hearing loss and vision problems. So thank you very much, Debbie. Excellent presentation.
Thank you, Linda. And let me address some of them. I might forget some of the comments and questions that you had, but so currently we do work with a lot of people who have hearing impairments and visual impairments, especially in our senior population. It's very common for people to lose hearing, and we do work with I Can Connect at the University of Delaware, and we also use interpreters, and our independent living staff are typically the people that are involved in those scenarios, and they're excellent. We also partner with the deafblind program for the kids in school, and we provide a lot of services, and so do they. And so I'm not addressing, we don't usually have services that we're providing at the school for the deaf and hard of hearing. So these are kids that are part of their homeschool district. And we will provide instruction in Braille, and deaf and hard of hearing will make sure that the teacher is involved. So I think there's definitely room for improvement. When we talk about transition services, this can be challenging because the school have a whole different criteria for eligibility than DVI for visual impairments. But with that said, we do make sure that if it's a child who is say visually impaired and has hard of hearing, and they meet the education eligibility, but maybe not our VR eligibility, because that's a different category, then we will work with division of vocational rehabilitation to make sure that they are getting the transition services that they need.
All right.
Did I capture everything?
I think you did a great job.
Yeah. Very quickly, let's hear from Loretta, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, he said Loretta.
Okay. Yes. So I was waiting for the interpreter to find me. Okay. So hello, everyone. Hello, Debbie.
Hello.
And Linda. She already mentioned certain points, but I'm already aware of course, the Delaware for the School of the Deaf has a statewide program for the blind, and they partner with several schools in the district as well. They educate parents. It depends on the IEP of the individual student, of course, and what their needs are, and those resources that would collaborate with that. But one thing I did want to mention about the independent living aspect is that I did get a few questions and calls related to the deaf-blind adult population after graduation. And some are saying that they hadn't had an IEP, or that, that they were missed with that. So I just was wondering if we could, maybe there could be a position that someone could be employed for that could just focus on independent living of deaf and blind individuals, maybe like maybe a counselor that could work with individuals like that to continue on working with them, post graduation, and continue to educate and train them. And also, is there still a contract with iConnect? Mm-hmm. With the iConnect program, do we still have a contract with that? I don't know if are you all continuing to work with that iConnect program?
So a couple things. I appreciate your idea of having a dedicated staff member. However, DVI is so small that if we dedicate one person to a certain initiative like that and they leave, we're kind of in a bad place. So we do make sure that all of our staff are trained to do that. I do ask that if anybody hears of anyone who has a visual impairment, whether they are hard of hearing or not, and they are they don't know where to go, please, please, please refer them to call us, and we will make sure that they get through the process of either going to us or DVR. Will help them through this. But dedicating staff to that is really challenging. I can tell you that our independent living staff, all of them are accustomed to working with people who are deaf and hard of hearing, or blind and hard of hearing, or blind and deaf. So they're amazing. And that's, I go back to them initially because most of the people that we're getting that fit that complement are seniors. Now, coming out of school, transitioning out of school, usually we do know who the children are that are transitioning, unless for some reason they didn't get DVI services during the education component. And then we would not know. I can tell you that if they didn't get DVI services, then there's a possibility they would not qualify for our adult VR program, because the education visual eligibility is much more forgiving than the adult component. So I just want, but doesn't matter, have them call us and we'll make sure they get to Alicia at DVR. So, and then I can connect, yeah, with University of Delaware. We've used that for our mostly our seniors too. So
All right, we got to move along quickly. So
thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We want to hear from Ted Marmagus. So take it away, Ted.
Good morning, everyone. And I'm going to wait there. My slides. Yep. Well, good morning. Thank you for inviting me today to today's event. I'm Ted Murmagos, and I'm the Acting Division Director at the Division of Medicaid and Medical Assistance. And I've been in this role since January of 2023. I learned something really quick. Medicaid is such a complex and complicated issue and program. Over my short time at DMMA, I may not have had the opportunity to work directly with most of you, but I have come to appreciate what you do to support people in the community. Like yourselves, DMMA is interested in promoting collaboration and innovative ideas, and to provide quality services and programs for persons with disabilities. Next slide. Although not inclusive, this slide reflects the core programs at DMMA for individuals with disabilities. Next slide. In state fiscal year 2024, in addition to the continued general fund appropriations, the governor and the General Assembly have allocated $8 million via the epilogue language for personal care services rate increases for the 4 codes addressed on the screen. This $8 million equates to approximately $20 million in total state and federal funding. DMMA is currently working with our internal fiscal unit and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services to effectuate this rate increase. Also in state fiscal year 2024, there was an allocation of $10 million in direct payments to nursing facilities throughout the state. We are also currently awaiting on CMS's formal approval for our request to make those direct payments. Next screen. The Division of Medicaid and Medical Assistance has been given the ultimate authority to distribute home and community-based services, ARPA funding, not only for programs within DMMA, but you will hear about some awesome plans from my colleagues at the Division of Developmental Disability Services, the Division of Substance Abuse and Mental Health, and the Division of Services for Aging and Adults with Physical Disabilities. Through this collaboration, Medicaid has been working with state agencies and our Office of the Secretary to provide services to Medicaid beneficiaries in order to make sure they're able to be served in their homes instead of institutions or other isolated settings. Since 2021, the state of Delaware has currently earmarked approximately $49 million for various HCBS projects for the 4 divisions and the Office of the Secretary. The type of services covered are quite broad and are not limited to just healthcare. Next slide. The Division of Medicaid and Medical Assistance is currently looking at a few 1115 waiver updates. These are all in their early exploratory and planning phases and have not yet been implemented. The first item, the housing support waiver, currently explores housing options most effective to support Medicaid members receiving behavioral health services and others, and are also facing obstacles to receiving services such as housing insecurities, unsafe living conditions, and the lack of transportation. DMMA plans to release a request for input from the community in the upcoming months. The second item, Justice Involved, DMMA intends to pursue a new Medicaid 1115 waiver to support community reentry and improve care transitions for individuals who are incarcerated or are in other types of living situations. Based off of our current Justice Involved initiative, this new 1115 opportunity has the potential to provide additional case management up to 90 days prior to release, cover medication assistance treatment for all types of substance use disorders, and provide members with 30 days of prescription medicine immediately upon release. And lastly, to provide optional new supports such as behavioral or physical health services prior to release, or supports from the community health workers who have lived experiences. And finally, support for children with complex medical needs. DMMA is currently exploring the development of a pediatric home and community-based service benefit tailored to children with intense or complex support needs. As a first step, an environmental scan was conducted to assess how other states have developed HCBS benefits for similar populations. DMMA is in its initial stages of exploring the design of a Delaware-specific HCBS benefit and will continue working internally with our stakeholders to further shape next steps. Next slide. It wouldn't be a presentation from the Division of Medicaid and Medical Assistance if we didn't take some time to address the unwinding activities in the state. As the Secretary mentioned, since April of 2023, Delaware began its unwinding process, which basically started up the redetermination processes that were on hold during the pandemic. As we mentioned earlier this year, individuals who are postpartum pregnancy recipients, have an intellectual or developmental disability, or reside in a long-term care facility will not be disenrolled from Medicaid for failure to supply financial documentation. These individuals will be contacted and a proper review will be conducted. The chart above reflects the current number of individuals to be renewed, and that is in burgundy. Those that have been renewed, that's reflected in green, and the individuals disenrolled from Medicaid, which are outlined in gray. Those individuals in gray have been referred to the federal marketplace for alternative forms of healthcare coverage. Unwinding will conclude in May and June of 2024. So as you can see, we do have a long way to go. Next slide. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, so yeah, I see John has a question, so let's start there, and then sorry, Susanna, I didn't see you till just now, so we'll go to John and then to Susanna.
Thank you, Benjamin, and thank you, Secretary Myrmagos. I just wanted to say that the State Council for Persons with Disabilities is certainly very, very interested in knowing your visions. You and Secretary Manning are both relatively new And we're looking forward to a formal meeting with you at maybe one of our upcoming meetings, maybe as soon as November, if we're able to get that scheduled in time. Because I know that we're going to have some really, really concise questions there, probably more so than we can fit in this in this forum today, as we want to share our time. But we appreciate what you do, but we know that we have a lot of work, and I know that there's some questions that are forthcoming, I'm sure, regarding your funding. But we look forward for the opportunity, if we can get you on the schedule as soon as possible, both of you, to provide a presentation with your full vision at one of our upcoming State Council for Persons with Disabilities meetings.
More than happy to attend.
All right, Susanna and then Melissa.
Marissa.
Sorry, I can't read. I'm so sorry.
Good morning, Director. Susanna Eaton Ryan, the Executive Director of the ARC of Delaware. This is a very specific question. We had our Public Policy Committee meeting last week, and a big topic of conversation was Medicaid for workers. And it was brought up by numerous members of the committee that in an effort to secure Medicaid for workers, there was no one at the division to contact. And I'm wondering if you could give us a path that would greatly appeal to the people on our members of the ARC.
Absolutely. We can certainly reach out to the ARC of Delaware after this meeting, and we can certainly give you all of the different contacts for Medicaid and how individuals can start the enrollment process.
Great, thanks.
Yeah,
would
absolutely.
be terrific.
Sure.
Thank you. And now let's go to Marissa, who I'm so sorry.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. My question is, we heard a lot about different partnerships and focus for improved services for different populations. But I was wondering what DMMA is doing, or if anything is planned in terms of collaborations with the Medicaid services provided through the Kids Department at DPBHS for higher level behavioral health services.
Yeah. So when I was discussing a little bit about the HCBS initiatives, we are collaborating with the Kids Department on some of their initiatives, specifically around behavioral health. Additionally, with pursuing the housing initiative through the 1115 waiver, that also is going to have a component related to not only that, but the justice involved situation. 1115 waiver, they're both going to have a component that involves the Kids Department here in Delaware to obviously deal with collaboration and helping individuals being released from that particular setting. So both of those initiatives are definitely, we're collaborating with the Kids Department as a major partner in that process.
Okay, and with that, if there are no more questions, we'll move on. And sorry, I lost the agenda again. So let's see. Melissa Smith of This Happened.
And I am also running my own slides. I'm just getting set up here. Okay. Looking good. Well, good morning, and thank you so much, John, Carolyn, Benjamin, for your hospitality and hosting us. It's fantastic to be in the room with so many partners and to be able to share some of our initiatives in partnership with so many people to support individuals with disabilities. So as a reminder, I'll do a quick overview of our division. DSAPD, the Division of Services for Aging and Adults with Physical Disabilities, is one of the largest of 11 divisions within Department of Health and Social Services. And our mission is to promote dignity, respect, and inclusion for older adults and people with disabilities. DSAPD strives to preserve health, dignity, and promote self-sufficiency for older people and individuals with physical disabilities by providing access to and coordination of the right services, the right time, and the right place. And what we have pictured here are our core services. information and assistance. We're always there through the Aging and Disability Resource Center to provide information, referral, and options counseling. We have a host of state employee case managers that provide pretty intensive case management in the community for individuals with disabilities and older Delawareans. Community nursing, also providing supports in home and in the community, and caregiver supports, which I am looking forward to highlighting some new things we're doing on that, adult protective services, and then other supports to home and community-based services, including community living supports. And that is something I also look forward to highlighting in just a minute. So DSAPID is created as a state unit on aging and created through the Older Americans Act. And so a big part of our mission is to support community living and community tenure, including aging in place, and also those supports to keep people independent and in their homes. And so this long list, which I don't think is completely comprehensive, but it's a good idea of the kind of supports we offer to individuals with disabilities and older adults in Delaware. Everything from, as mentioned, resources and referrals for the Aging and Disabilities Center, through chronic disease self-management to help individuals manage their own diseases at home and to be given the best tools they can to manage disease. Healthy homes, which I'll look forward to highlighting a bit, some expansions we've done there to support individuals living in their homes and to keep the home that they're in as healthy and safe as possible. Other supports that we are proud of include legal services to support individuals' legal decisions and supports, Stand By Me 50 Plus, which is financial assistance, and then community employment through the Senior Community Service Employment Program, just to highlight a few. The box in blue highlights some of those in-home supports that are really crucial to independent living and staying in the community, and they're also shared with our division of Medicaid and medical assistance. And so we provide these same services in the blue box for individuals that are not Medicaid eligible. I wanted to quickly just highlight our strategic initiatives that we're working towards now and have been planning for the last couple of years. We're looking at redesigning our community operations to assure that we're streamlining and offering as many community-based supports to individuals with disabilities and older adults as possible. And that means making sure that we're not duplicating services with Medicaid or other supports that are available, instead looking to complement that array to provide healthy living and healthy aging tactics. To that end, supporting an aging in place is a primary goal of ours, to make sure that we're providing all the supports necessary to individuals and their families so that individuals can live and age in place in the communities of their choice. Running the only state-run skilled nursing facility, a commitment to excellence in long-term care is also a primary strategic initiative, and to continue that work that has gotten DHCI to 5 stars and then continue to build on new and promising practices that we're implementing there. And then because funding is so limited and difficult to obtain, we make sure that we are streamlining and leveraging all efficiencies that we can through programming and through making sure that we're not duplicating services, but complementing services that are already available and making sure that we are able to direct individuals to the best path to supports and services. Our guiding principles behind everything we do are person-centered approaches, supporting our workforce, infusing diversity, equity, and inclusion in all aspects of what we do and what we contract for services, and then look to be a self-correcting agency to use data, information, and analysis to assure that we are aware of how well our programs are doing, and we make adjustments where things aren't going as well as we hoped. I wanted to highlight our growing commitment in services, in that I was really happy to highlight a straight line trending north with the personal attendant services. So to quickly highlight, the blue line is the attendant services, and as you can see, it's our most quickly growing service. So we're real proud of the growth that we've been able to work towards together with our providers, as well as being able to have the funds to continue that growth. We look forward to continuing to grow that program. I just wanted to highlight the yellow is personal care services, and then respite and ERS are also highlighted. As you saw from earlier slides, this isn't comprehensive. this is really where we spend almost the majority of our funds available for community services. I want to highlight a couple of areas we're looking to grow in community living supports. As alluded to in a couple of other presentations from my colleagues, we are awaiting CMS approval for some funding proposals we put in through partnership with the Division of Medicaid and Medicaid Medical Services, and that is to issue a broad sweeping home modification program in Delaware that would cross disabilities and really look to solidify and streamline an infrastructure mechanism so that we have ideally a one-stop shop for how to access home modifications, how to access technologies and assistive devices that would be helpful in the home, and very clear eligibility and funding guidelines. And so looking forward to working with hopefully most of the partners in this room today, if we are afforded the opportunity to use those funds in Delaware for home modifications. Secondly, we currently have out for requests for proposal programs to do the Capable program, and the Capable program is comprised of an occupational therapist, intervention, a client-centered nurse, intervention, home safety, and access to handy worker services. Each service builds on the others by increasing the participants' psychological functional capacity to function at home. And so we're really looking forward to evaluating the proposals that came in and making some awards to rolling out that support as well for community-based living. We launched the Healthy Homes pilot a couple of years ago in Wilmington, and the success was really pretty incredible. And so since then, we've expanded to all 3 counties and also expanded. The original category was over 60, so we're now going 18 plus with physical disabilities to also access this wonderful service in partnership with Habitat for Humanity. And then lastly, we really we're grateful to increase the number of state rental assistance program vouchers that we have available through our division and can be available for persons with disabilities as well. During the pandemic, we started a partnership with the University of Delaware to take a look at the capacity and the know-how of health providers in providing accessible healthcare, accessible vaccinations. And so this included a very widespread, wide sweeping survey of participants and their experiences in accessing healthcare, particularly around access to the vaccine. And then also surveyed healthcare providers around their general knowledge of ADA accessibility, and then more specifically, general knowledge and comfort level with speaking with individuals with disabilities about vaccines and other medical concerns. The result is what is on your screen here. It's a new website now that's a resource database for both healthcare providers as well as individuals with disabilities. And this website affords the opportunity to both individuals and healthcare providers to take a deeper dive into expectations around accessibility and access. And so I'm so proud of this accomplishment in partnership with the University of Delaware and so many others, because what we feel is this was a lasting impact we could make after the horrors of the pandemic, and that hopefully as a result of this, there's a little more knowledge and hopefully the end outcome is better accessibility for persons with disabilities and better information as it comes for the vaccines. A lot of my peers have already mentioned some of our partnerships, so this will be a repeat quickly of some, and just highlighting a couple of other ways. We're working across the department to support individuals with disabilities. We were happy to work with the Division of Public Health to update their emergency preparedness brochure for persons with disabilities. And as mentioned, we are really enjoying the synergistic effect of having peer supports come into the DHCI and work with our residents. As highlighted by Director Tally Bean, we are very excited at the successes we've seen through partnership with their division of visually impaired and increasing the amount of assistive technology available there, and partnering really closely with DDDS on the needs of aging caregivers. And I'll dive into that in just a moment. I'm really grateful for both the opportunity through the FMAP and the support of DMMA to assure that we were included in retention and recruitment payments to direct service professionals We are in the midst of continuing to make enhancements to our Aging and Disability Resource Center to increase the capacity and the access there through no wrong door enhancements. And then, as I mentioned, we're eagerly awaiting approval for proposals to roll out home modifications in a very broad way across Delaware and support to our Delaware Caregiver Action Network, which I will dive into our caregiver supports for the final piece of the presentation. So over the last year, we did a lot of research and work in partnership with the National Association of State Health Planning and policy, and we were able to conduct a series of focus groups with a wide variety of caregivers. And we were really grateful for the feedback that they gave us. And it's now geared towards policy change and work towards building a Delaware Caregiver Action Network. And one of the very first actionable items we learned from the caregivers that came to the table and worked with us were that caregiving is a term that isn't natural to this work, and that it's really a industry name that we need to help individuals identify with so that then they understand that the services that are available are for them. And so we launched a caregiver campaign, which was really intended to name caregiving and help individuals identify themselves as caregivers so that hopefully they would be more likely to access services through the caregiver resource centers or other supports that are available to them. So this caregiver campaign is still live, and you might see it on Facebook or other social media. It was also in newspapers and on the radio, and will run through the next year. And then finally, I wanted to highlight our Delaware Caregiver Action Network. This came from the work we did with the NASHP grant and our host of caregivers. And there's also a national model for Caregiver Action Network. The goal of the Caregiver Action Network is to go to action, meaning we're really looking to learn and hear about what policy changes and what program changes we need to make to better suit the needs of all caregivers in Delaware. And so one of the proposals we put through for the FMAP money is to increase the capacity there by bringing on technical assistance and also making sure that the work we do through the Caregiver Action Network is also accessible. So making sure that we're meeting and getting together at times that are convenient for caregivers, and also have a host of ways that caregivers can come to the meetings, including hopefully respite and other support, so that we can really allow caregivers the opportunity to participate in this really important effort. So with that, I think I am on my last slide of thank you, and I'm happy to entertain questions to the extent that there is time to do so.
Thank you for making note of that. Do we have any questions for Director Smith?
I believe Linda Heller has her hand up.
Okay, let's go to Linda.
You're muted, Linda.
Thank you, Director Smith, for the very informative presentation. Very, very helpful. I recently, this past week, was asked to help a woman who was homeless on Route 13. And to give you a brief summary, she was a 69-year-old homeless woman who went into depression and anxiety post the death of her husband a little over a year ago, and lost her home and lost everything. And the issue is she doesn't have a place to live. So for a couple of days, I tried to get into state systems to get help, and the phone was busy, on hold, just couldn't get through. So I went over to the Hope Center, showed up at the door, and a woman there said, came out because it's secure, so I couldn't just walk in. And the woman said, you know what? If she has an advocate with her, you she will get, quote, more help. And so at that point, on Friday, this past Friday, I drove over to, she said, you have to go to the state service center closest to where she is. So that was the DLOR. So I took her over to the DLOR service center, met with a wonderful case manager. And the bottom line is, of course, there is no room in the inn, in any inn, whether, you know, for housing. You have to wait a year and a half or two to get any kind of housing. So the person does have some depression and anxiety, some mental health issue, and she has some heart issue, and every once in a while she would put nitroglycerin in. So at that point, they put her up in the Red Roof Inn for 3 weeks. And now she's got 3 weeks to find some kind of housing. So my question is, without going into great detail, because these stories all have a lot of detail, my question is, what alternatives are there for someone like this? Is rest residential still an option? Can housing be in a room be extended beyond 3 weeks? What could we do with an elderly 69-year-old woman who has never had any contact with the state system ever, gets SSI $914 a month? So what could I do to help this person more get some kind of housing? Because I saw her yesterday and she was already better, having a roof over her head and some food and everything. So I can see an improvement already. But what can we do beyond the 3 weeks? Thank
Linda,
you.
thanks. Sure. It's nice to see you again, Linda, by the way, also. And thanks so much, first of all, for your advocacy for this woman and others. And I would, if you can reach out, I'll make sure I put my information in the chat. I would love to connect with, for our staff to connect with her directly. As we know, housing is difficult. And so I'm really grateful that you were able to connect her with some temporary housing that might give us a little time to work with her and see what kind of options we have. And so not knowing more details, what I would like to do is connect with her directly and see what options we can explore with her and in partnership with others to support her.
Hey, thank you so much. These are interesting, challenging system questions. I understand.
And with that, we will move on and introduce Director Jody Roberts. Thank you. Thank you. Take it away, Jody.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. It's a really wonderful event. And I think what I appreciate, especially being this at this point in the agenda, is that it reminds me just how exciting it is to think about all of the partners that we have all across the state. There are very few opportunities for us to realize, sometimes in our day-to-day work, especially if we're in a division or in a department where we're doing this work every day, to really realize that this is a whole of state effort to support individuals with who have disabilities of all sorts all across the state. And so to be here and to hear about the amazing work that is happening in departments that are not my home department is always really inspiring. And I appreciate the work of the State Council to be an advocate in that holistic way. So thank you both for hosting the event and for the invitation to be here today. I will also share my own slides. So please bear with me while I pull those up. All right. And I hope that we also, it's clear to folks who are here with us today that my colleagues and I really took to heart the aspect of partnership that was implicit in this meeting, and that we've really tried to emphasize both the work that we're doing within our specific spheres, but also the ways in which that is done in collaboration with other entities, whether those are sister divisions or those are other departments. And I think most of all with the colleagues that we have here with the State Council. And so hopefully you see yourselves reflected in this work and know that the work that we're sharing is also an invitation to continue to work with us in the future. All right. So I wanted to share just a quick glimpse before we dive into some of the work that we're doing about some of the trends that we are tracking and thinking about how our system within the Division of Developmental Disability Services is evolving. We don't always have the most robust data related to our services at our fingertips, but it is something that we have been trying to invest in over the last couple of years. And that we are aspiring to do more of in a more concrete way so that we can share these sorts of pictures about how our system continues to evolve. So a couple of the things that we have been noting over the last year, especially as we come out of the public health emergency. The first is that over the last 10 years, the division's service population has grown by greater than 70%. We now, at the end of the last fiscal year, had almost 5,500 people that we were serving statewide with DDDS services. In the last year, new applications came in for services at the highest rate ever and the highest percentage eligible ever than in any previous year. So not only were we getting more applications, which we anticipated because of the public health emergency, but we also had a higher percentage of those applications deemed eligible for DDDS services. This means that we are growing, not just in terms of those who are reaching out for services, but in actual size of the division. We're also seeing growth at what we might call the edges of our service system. Inside of those new applications, we see a greater trend of individuals who are younger applying for services, which is great. That was a heavy emphasis of our changes to our eligibility criteria and the outreach that was a part of that last year. So serving individuals who are 3 and up, but we hadn't typically seen many applications for individuals that young. But we also, of course, have more individuals in our service system who are aging, who are experiencing things like retirement. Which is a really interesting moment for the division to be thinking about how to stretch and imagine support truly across the lifespan of individuals being as young as 3, but also supporting individuals that we have served for decades who are ready to retire. We also serve more, are seeing applications for and are serving individuals with more complex support needs, whether those are behavioral support needs, those are medical support needs. We have within our system, and again, growing trend-wise, individuals who will require a different set of supports moving forward. And also coming from our applicant data, we're seeing a shift towards new applications coming from individuals living in Sussex County. While traditionally, Newcastle County has made up just over 50% of all individuals being served, we are now imagining what it will look like to have a greater service population in Sussex and what it will mean to support them and support our provider agencies in supporting them as they enter into our system and grow and expand in that geography. So just as our population and demographics evolve, so do our systems. Our primary tool for supporting individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the state of Delaware is our 1915C waiver. That is our lifespan waiver. And we are coming up right now on the renewal of that waiver. That waiver is renewed every 5 years with Medicaid. We are in the process now of beginning to lay out our listening sessions. They were going to be in October. They are now in November. So that will be made public November 1st, and we will look forward to engaging many of you in your feedback on that waiver and what is included in it. There are 2 main things that I wanted to highlight that are included in the waiver renewal for 2024. The first is that we are trying a new way of expanding access to assistive technology, home modifications, and vehicle modifications by making those brokered services. We understand that these are 3 services that ought to be in high demand, and yet they are underutilized across the state. And that we understand that part of that underutilization is a lack of providers who can actually provide that service, who are authorized by Medicaid to do so. By moving this towards a brokered system, we can enable the individuals who do this work day to day to do it, but to work with an entity that can arrange that partnership with the division and with Medicaid. So we're very excited to see how that will work and change the landscape of providing access to those really important services going forward. The second is that we are expanding our network of shared living providers, which right now is done with individuals who open up their homes to support individuals with IDD to live in their home, to be to be a service that is provided by provider agencies. Several of our provider agencies already do this in other states. This would allow them to be the contractor for opening up additional homes. And I think in keeping with what my predecessor, Marissa Catalan, really saw, opening up access into shared living is one of the primary ways in which we can increase the number of individuals who can be supported to live out on their own and to be supported in a setting that is least restrictive. But as an agency, as a division, we have had challenges recruiting enough individuals to provide this service on their own. By opening this up to allow provider agencies to assist us with that, we're hoping that we can see some really significant growth in providing this service across the state in the years to come. So now I'm going to shift to some of the work that we are investing in addition to things like the waiver, which is, really thinking about our foundation, and really picked out things that I wanted to highlight that are both critical, but also demonstrate the importance of those partnerships that you've been hearing about already from many of my colleagues this morning. I'm going to start in that upper left-hand quadrant and talk about making mental health accessible. Over the last year, the division has invested, with the support of DMMA and CMS, funding to conduct 2 different analyses of how mental health access is or is not available to individuals with IDD in the state of Delaware. The first was a gap analysis done in partnership with the Center for START Services out of the University of New Hampshire, and in partnership with our colleagues here at the Center for Disability Studies, which through stakeholder engagement, through a statewide survey, and through an analysis of Medicaid claims data, has given us a picture of what it looks like to be an individual with IDD who also needs access to mental health, and both what our strengths are as a state and where we need to invest to overcome gaps in those services. The second was a capacity building institute in partnership with our national organization, the National Association for State Directors of DD Services, who put together a cohort of a half a dozen states who were interested in trying to similarly assess the clinical capacity of your state to provide mental health resources for individuals with IDD. Out of both of those studies that were done, we recognize some core strengths of our state, that there is a strong leadership capacity and commitment to addressing mental health in this state, but that we also lack some certain key features, including mental health providers who can address the lifespan of individuals with IDD, investments in opportunities to bring clinically proven trauma-informed treatments to those individuals, and that we need to do more work expanding that capacity within our provider agencies and then making those services sustainable. The division, in partnership with DSAM and DMMA, has invested in a second year of that Capacity Building Institute, where we'll be focusing on capacity building in our provider agencies, sustainability in our funding, and translation of those services that in that work was mostly focused on supporting families of younger children to inform our adult care system. Over on the upper right quadrant, the supporting caregivers, I won't repeat much more than what Director Smith has already shared, but that is the important work that has come out of this. The division on its own about 2 years ago invested in data collection and assessment of need to really start to get a picture of what does aging caregiving look like in the state of Delaware. And we got that picture, but we realized that this was not something that we could approach alone as a division. We've also know that out of that assessment that one of the #1 resources requested by caregivers to assist them is greater access to respite. So we have been excited to partner with DMMA on their rollout of their new pediatric respite program, which we believe will have overall system benefits for accessing respite by building a larger, stronger, and broader care system for respite once that program is fully operational. And then we are excited to stop doing this work on supporting caregivers on our own, but to look to the amazing work that is being done by DSAPD and that Director Smith discussed about, and really think about what it means to create an action network for supporting individuals across their lifespan as caregivers. This means not simply supporting the act of caregiving, but to also realize that sometimes the best support we can provide to a caregiver is to allow them to be something more than a caregiver. And so we're extraordinarily excited to work with DSAPD as they expand that work. We're keeping our fingers crossed along with them as we wait for the funding approval from Medicaid on that. In the bottom left quadrant, I have here some of the investments that we have made in trying to build an inclusive workforce for the future. There's a lot happening around workforce, and we all know that there needs to be more happening around workforce. But I wanted to highlight just a few of the things that we've been able to do over the last couple of years. One is really strengthening and focusing on strengthening recruitment. As Director Smith said, we also provided recruitment and retention bonuses for our DSPs, but we also partnered with organizations such as the Ability Network of Delaware to provide access to training opportunities for our provider agencies to get better at recruitment. We are continuing to work with the Ability Network of Delaware in their pursuit of the development of a healthcare workforce training program that takes the DSP trainings that the division provides and finds a way to turn those into curriculum for high school and technical school students so that they come out of their current educational environment ready to be DSPs. We're investing in leadership and career development opportunities. We've been excited to launch the DSP Lead program, which is a partnership with the National Leadership Consortium on Developmental Disabilities to provide leadership training to direct support professionals in Delaware and to develop a community of DSPs who can support each other in Delaware, but also form the basis of the future leadership capacity for our state. While we also invest in opportunities for DSPs to advance their careers through programs such as the Registered Behavioral Technician program, so they can become certified RBTs, which also enhances our capacity for supporting individuals with mental health and behavioral health support needs, and also to become certified in ACRE training so that we can expand our supported employment services in the state, which is a wonderful transition into also thinking about how we can support individuals with disabilities themselves to enter and expand this workforce. One of those programs that we are piloting is the DSP Academy. This is a program borrowed from Washington, D.C., where individuals with disabilities of all sorts, including physical disabilities, are trained to become DSPs and assist in our workforce. So we see this as an amazing opportunity to think about how we expand opportunities for those with disabilities to support those with disabilities in addressing our workforce crisis twofold. So that's been a really exciting program, and we hope to have that fully launched by the end of the calendar year, now that some of the infrastructure has been built. And then finally, in that bottom right quadrant, just touching on how we are working to address housing. We are excited to have put into place a memorandum of understanding with the Delaware State Housing Authority. sorry. Thank you. To find ways to take the program already in place with the Housing Authority, where they rank and score programs by developers looking for support, to include in their evaluation that developer's intent to provide residential, to provide space for individuals with disabilities, whether that is affordability, facilitating access through affordability, or facilitating access through the physical infrastructure of their development. So that MOU was just signed. It will be implemented in the next scoring round used by the Delaware State Housing Authority. And we're really excited to see how this can help to stimulate within our development community the ways in which providing access to individuals with disabilities can enhance your opportunities to access state and federal funds for your development project. We've also submitted a request to CMS using ARPA dollars to conduct an IDD housing needs assessment. Following on a similar program that was conducted in Vermont, this assessment would help us to map out the current but also future needs of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and what their housing support needs will be in the coming years, so that we can begin to look towards our partnerships with the State Housing Authority and other entities to really think about the physical infrastructure that is needed to support the individuals that we support on a daily basis as that population grows, as that population ages, and as it evolves in the state of Delaware. So very excited to be doing that work both with Medicaid and with our partners over in the State Housing Authority. So lots of really exciting opportunities for the division to be working with other divisions within DHSS, but also with other entities in the state to try to imagine how we continue to evolve our service system into the future. Happy to take questions and also happy to follow up afterwards if that is more appropriate. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Let's see, do we have any questions? If not, we'll move on to Director Jenkins. Thank you, Jody. Last call for questions.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's move on to Director Alicia Jenkins and take it away.
Good morning. So I believe Dee is going to pop the slides up for me. Perfect. Thank you, Dee. So greetings from Secretary of Labor Carol Hubbard and the team at the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. Thank you for the opportunity to highlight our division. My name is Alicia Jenkins, and I have the pleasure of serving as the director. The division's core beliefs are there are always more than one future. The key is to find the intersection of the possible, preferable, and plausible futures. Next slide, please. So this is a highlight of our program compared to fiscal year 22 and 23. As you can tell, in 2022, the division had supported 743 folks with employment versus 693 in 2023. Hourly wages did increase to $15.72 on average. Decreased those in supported employment that are employed from 141 to 134. And those that are classified as supported employment had an average wage of $12.71. Moving on to our transition students, slight increase in those numbers served from 277 versus the 244 that were employed. Smaller increase in the wages around that too, to $14.71 per hour. Decrease in 2 students that we served as far as overall transition, not those that were employed, to 654 this year versus 656 in 2022. And then an increase in a little over 30 students as far as the numbers that we served in transition services overall. In summary, there were 4,364 individuals overall that were served. That's the portion as far as employment numbers, and that is just over 20 more than we served in fiscal year 22. Thank you. For the next slide. Yep. So for our Office of Deaf and Hard of Hearing, the initiatives continue historically focused on single interventions rather than addressing systemic barriers to level set equitable, long-term, sustainable opportunities for the deaf. And so we are looking forward to addressing policy gaps, improving access to communication, education, health, employment, and social opportunities, and increasing existing services and programs for the deaf and hard of hearing. Also around the public awareness just about the services that are available. So we are looking to include in our budget request for fiscal year 25, a request for a communications coordinator. So this individual's role will be to assist, provide technical assistance with access and interpreters, best practices, and additional support for the Office of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. And I might go back to say the other budget request for this upcoming year is the addition of additional counselors to support some of the work that we have in our schools. All right, next slide, please. Oh, thank you. For Disability Determination Services, this is one arm of the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. So under Social Security regulations, the DDS team of disability adjudicators determines eligibility of Delaware applicants for 3 disability programs. So this year they cleared 9,833 cases. During the federal fiscal year, their quality score was 95%, and they had a 93.1% rating, achieving all their goals for this year. And on to our areas of focus. So this year we served 3,233 students with disabilities compared to the 2,931 before. 2,900 of those received services such as work-based learning, job exploration, work readiness, counseling, and self-advocacy. So we want to continue, in addition to the mandate of working on our pre-employment transition services and our transition services, just reviewing our model, increasing collaboration with our partners as well. As Director Talley mentioned, we did close out our technical assistance with the National Expansion on Employment Opportunities Network, other words, NEON. So colleagues from DVI, DDDS, and DOE, we work together as a part of the NEON initiative, and we're brainstorming our next steps with that work that's being done. But some of the milestones were reviewing the supported employment rates, how we as DVR provide the pre-employment transition services, what does partner engagement look like around drafting some elements of the memorandum of understanding, and opportunities to bring funding resources, to name just a few. For our strategic planning initiative, is something that we're just getting started on. Looking for innovative solutions to achieve greater access. How do we continue to build careers and retain talent from a public workforce standpoint? How do we continue to customize services and collectively impact at all systems levels? So we're moving forward with that. And recruitment and retention initiatives, certainly supporting the collaboration with our Department of Human Resources for our vocational rehabilitation counselors, looking at the market research of surrounding states of our counselors who do that work as well. And we also have technical assistance provided by the University of Wisconsin at Madison around supported employment. So we are in our second group of our team completing the ACRE training, which is the competencies that raise the standard around employment, and working with them as well on initiatives for business engagement with our business team, connecting our talent to those employers around that. And lastly, our marketing and communication. So stay tuned for enhanced communication from the Department of Labor. If you haven't already heard it on the radio, there'll be billboards and a mobile option that's coming as part of our Did You Know campaign. Next slide, please. So what you see on this screen, to the top two and the far left are all pictures of graduations from Project Search. This held this past May and June. And then to the top right-hand corner is one of the awardees, Mr. Smith, who was recognized at the Service Source Awards ceremony this past week. And then the bottom right-hand corner was where we joined colleagues with the governor signing the autism awareness dedication. So in conclusion, the Department of Labor, through its many programs and resources in employment and training, has 40 programs, also has unemployment insurance modernization work for claimants, industrial affairs, has a host of programs available, and then the newly formed paid family leave arm around this. So we realized that this is indeed a great opportunity, and look forward to not only in the month of October, where we celebrate National Disability Employment Awareness Month, but to continue the candid conversations around disabilities being a part of the equation in diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Thank you for the opportunity to share updates on behalf of the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation.
All right, thank you. And we'll move on to, does anybody have any questions? If not, we'll move on to Director Glenn Owen and then the custody awards. But first of all, any questions for Director Jenkins?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, and take it away, Director Owens.
Thank you, and it's just Administrator Owens.
Sorry,
it's all right.
Quoting everyone.
I don't want to be accused of stolen valor. I'm going to try to share my screen here, if I may. I was asked to give a presentation. Hopefully, it will work well with. Specifically related to crisis intervention. So my name is Glenn Owens. I'm the administrator for crisis intervention for DSAM. And what I was hoping to talk about specifically today is a little bit about what crisis intervention does, but also some of our recent work specifically with DDDS and some things that we're doing there with the TTI grant. I think I'll start with our first slide. What is crisis in Delaware? Well, there's a continuum, and generally speaking, with the crisis continuum, there are three primary pieces. Now, the first one is going to be someone to talk to. For that, we have two state-run crisis response centers that take phone calls. We also, for youth, have Delaware Guidance. They handle calls for anyone under the age of 18. Contact Lifeline is a volunteer-run organization, but they are accredited with 988. So right now, when people in the state of Delaware call 988, they're going to be routed to the Contact Lifeline. That's adults, children, etc. I should mention that the state-run crisis intervention teams have also just gone through the accreditation process and will be functioning in the short term as a backup for the Contact Lifeline at the 988 number. In the longer term, our plan is to more or less take over in the next few years so that we have one hub, one behavioral health crisis communication center that can handle all calls for children, adults, etc. The second primary factor involved with the crisis continuum is the community response, someone to respond, someone to go out to see you in the community. For adults, that is crisis intervention. We have the sort of double pleasure or double duty of not only taking the phone calls from adults, but also going out and seeing people in the community. One of the benefits, at least with living in a small state, is that it's much easier to organize this sort of service. And as a result, when people call in, they get the opportunity usually to have the same person come out and see them in the community that they've spoken to on the phone call. And while that may not seem like a huge thing that you talk to two people, if you're in a real struggling place, you're having a hard time seeing a way out, etc., having to explain what's going on over and over again in and of itself can be traumatizing. So one of the big benefits that we have in the state of Delaware is that, generally speaking, the people that you talk to on the phone are the same people that would come and see you in your home or wherever else you might be. It makes it a little bit easier to set up and establish rapport, and hopefully to come up with a good positive conclusion. The third prong of crisis continuum anywhere is having somewhere to go. And what we have listed here is the Recovery Innovations Recovery Response Centers, both in Ellendale and Newark. That being said, the private psychiatric hospitals also function as a crisis stabilization unit as well, because a lot of people do end up going straight into those facilities. So we do have them, but just to give you a brief about the Recovery Innovations Recovery Response Centers, they're set up as 23-hour facilities where people who are struggling may not have a great grasp on their community tenure, may need some quick and acute help to sort of get back on their feet again. They have the option of going into one of these facilities and hopefully stabilizing, seeing a psychiatrist, and sort of getting back on their feet in short order so they can avoid what could be a more lengthy hospitalization. Let's get to the next slide here. So there are some gaps in care, and this is largely dealing with folks who are served by Jody's unit, DDDS, and we are trying our best to not only identify the gaps in care, but then in addition work to improve. Staff training is one thing we've identified that we will be pursuing and already are. Determining appropriate level of care. That's oftentimes a challenge, but that is a division-wide process that we are working on. Lengthy ED stays. Nobody, unfortunately, sometimes when you have co-occurring diagnoses, folks, whether we wish them to or not, or whether crisis, for instance, ever gets involved or not, sometimes individuals with co-occurring issues, specifically mental health and developmental disabilities, end up in emergency rooms. Police aren't sure what to do, other folks aren't sure what to do, and that can result in lengthy stays in the emergency room. It's something that we have targeted as something we would like to work towards reducing, as well as police engagement when it's not necessary. And that comes in both aspects, but a lot of times when people are not doing well and are acting in accordance with what their issues are, people get nervous. If you're manic, if you're developmentally delayed, you may get frustrated, you may be difficult to deal with, and sometimes police get called. We have a lot of ways actually at DSM where we've been engaging with the police to really try to change how policing works across the state when it comes to not just individuals with mental health issues, but almost anybody that seems to be struggling in the moment. And I think through some of the programs that we have, we've been pretty successful there. The complex etiology or causation of what's going on can sometimes trip us up. And then again, it falls sometimes into the category of, well, it's not our problem, it's their problem, or it's not their problem, it's our. When there's a struggle, and particularly when someone is in a crisis, it really is everybody's problem and everybody's obligation to get involved. And so that is something we are very much working on. Lack of resources, I don't necessarily want to go into. I think everybody from time to time deals with or struggles with the lack of resources. So the next slide, the Transformation Transfer Initiative. We were awarded a grant in December of 2022 for building crisis services that serve under-resourced minority communities, specifically folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities or dual intellectual and developmental disabilities and behavioral health. This is where a lot of the work has been done on identifying gaps in care and working towards the future and improving collaboration with DDDS. The general goal is to develop cross-agency partnerships, strengthen behavioral health crisis services for neurodiverse individuals. We're doing that with collaborative learning and system mapping, developing training curriculums and public resources, and partnering with the first responder community. I'm just going to give you a next slide, which is my last one, which is just the project timeline and next steps and where we are. Obviously, we're in October. We've sort of gone through stakeholder interviews, discovery and alignment, but we're really in the systems and resource mapping portion, as well as interagency work group facilitation, and we're beginning on subcommittee working sessions. So we are right in the middle of our project, but I think everybody from DSAM's side is actually very hopeful about where this is going. I know this is maybe a little more specific than some of the other presentations. I'm of course happy to take questions if I know the answers. Obviously, I'll provide them, or if I don't know them, I will get them for you. But as far as my regular presentation, that was what I had. So I'm going to stop sharing, and if anybody has questions, happy to take them.
All right, thank you, Administrator. Got to be sure I get that. Does anybody have questions for Administrator Owens?
It looked like John might.
Okay, John.
Administrator Owens, I want to thank you for the presentation, and I also want to say that we have been very, very proud with to have the relationships that we've had with many of the departments or divisions underneath the Department of Health and Social Services. Mm-hmm. One in particular division that we'd like to have a better relationship, and I think it's not just kind of overdue, but it's certainly become much more timely, is our relationship with the SAM. Yeah. So we invite you at any time, once again, to present, but also to have an equal voice, at the table at any time regarding your issues, and the issues that most reflect, the citizens of Delaware. So we look forward to that. And again, I thank you for presenting this year. And again, we look forward to having a much, much better relationship as we move forward.
Thank you. I do too, and I'll just throw one other thing out there, not necessarily part of the presentation, but there's a lot of folks on here, and it's sometimes good to get the word out. And that is, if you or in your division, department, etc., run across a situation and you think, boy, I'm not sure what's going on with this person. They seem to really be struggling. They're having a hard day. I don't know what to do. We have 2 toll-free numbers. I encourage you to call those numbers directly. We have people there that are waiting specifically to talk to clients, talk to friends, talk to coworkers. We talk to the police, we talk to providers. We are always happy to help and get involved if you have something that seems to be a crisis. And I'll just to clarify, a crisis very often is in the eye of the beholder. And so we recognize that, and we are happy to talk to people who are going through a crisis. You know, someone else's crisis might not be seen as a crisis by you or other people. But what they're going through is really, really hard in the moment. And so we are always happy to get involved and help. I can actually, I'll type in the chat the two phone numbers as well, so everybody has them for our adult crisis service. And then I'll just say thank you very much. If there's any other questions, happy to answer.
All right, last call for questions for Administrator Owens. If not, we'll turn it back over to John for the presentation of the custody awards, and then we'll wrap up.
Sure. Thank you very much, Benjamin. The custody award is always one of the highlights for this particular event. But before I get to that, I just want to thank everybody for the time that you've taken, our cabinet secretaries, our directors, and many other participants have taken their time today to participate and have found it important enough to stick with us through this entire presentation, this entire event. And again, we will reward you next year with food and the opportunity to have our side conversations that we so truly miss. I also would be remiss if I didn't thank you know, my boss, Secretary McQueen, and the Department of Safety and Homeland Security, who always makes it a priority to not just participate in this, but is a staunch supporter of the council. It's, you know, it's in its uniqueness, its need for independence, but also its need for support as a small division. It's a small agency. Again, we want to thank our leadership for all they do to support us. Now, on to the custody award. Mary Custis Strong, the custody award is honors the memory of a woman who worked and spent her life improving the lives of people who have disabilities and their families. Mary Custis Strong was born in 1934. She developed multiple sclerosis as a young adult. She is a graduate, was a graduate of the University of Delaware. Of her most significant achievements was certainly being her work with regards to the passing of the Americans with Disabilities Act, for which she was honored with the Victory Award in 1990. She was truly a champion in the highest regard, a Delawarean that we are all grateful for her hard work, and the naming of this award for her and any recipient who's ever had the ability or in the future has the opportunity to achieve this should know that they are under the umbrella of great company with all the work that Mary Custis Strong had done for all of us. This year we recognize our recipient of the custody award as Mrs. Laura Waterland, Esquire. Laura is recently retired in June as the project director of the Delaware Disabilities Law Program at Community Legal Aid Society, Incorporated. After more than 30 years as a legal aid attorney dedicated to advocating for people with disabilities across Delaware, that must have meant that she started at 12 years old. because she certainly doesn't look and has the energy of somebody half the amount of time that she's spent there. She has dedicated her legal career to advocating for some of the most vulnerable Delawareans, children and adults with physical and mental disabilities. Laura has improved the lives of tens of thousands of people with disabilities statewide through individual representation, systemic litigation, community education, and policy and legislative advocacy efforts. Bear with me just a moment. Computer glitches. Laura has worked tirelessly in advancing the goals of the Disabilities Law Program, which is designated, forgive me, which is designated by the governor in Delaware's protection and advocacy systems for people with disabilities. The DLP provides free legal representation statewide to children, to people with disabilities. The DLP provides free legal representation statewide to children and adults with physical and mental disabilities to protect them from the abuse and neglect, and advocate for their rights in the community, including civil rights, compliance with Americans with Disabilities Act, and state and discrimination laws, educational services, medical services, housing, government benefits, and treatment in the least restrictive environment. Laura is engaged in extensive legislation and policy work on behalf of Delawareans with disabilities, resulting in significant changes benefiting the disabilities community statewide. For example, through her role on different councils, she worked with lawmakers drafting House Bill 311, which was signed into law in 2022 and explicitly required places of public accommodation like restaurants and motels to make reasonable accommodations so that people with disabilities can access their services. It's also that people with disabilities, excuse me, have the right to be heard by Delaware's Human and Civil Rights Commission if their request for reasonable accommodation is denied. She obtained policy changes making it easier for patients on Medicaid to receive life-saving hepatitis C medications. And she also has been deeply engaged in advocacy to ensure voting is accessible for Delawareans with disabilities. Laura has also been recognized for advocacy on behalf of Delawareans with disabilities during the COVID-19 pandemic. She was an integral part of the vaccine planning efforts, always making sure that people with disabilities were not forgotten or overlooked. She helped make sure that vaccine sites were accessible and offered accommodations. She also advocated for early access to testing for people who worked or participated in congregate settings, and for changes to Delaware crisis standards of care to ensure that Delawareans with disabilities receive equal access to life-sustaining treatments, even in times of crisis. She never backed down despite the challenges of the pandemic, and many lives were improved as a result. Finally, Laura has served as a member of the State Council for Persons with Disabilities, the Developmental Disabilities Council, the Children with Medical Complexities Advisory Council, and many other councils and task forces dedicated in advancing the rights of individuals with disabilities. So at this time, I'd just like to ask you all to applause in your own way and recognize Laura Waterland as this year's recipient of the Custody Award. Thank you, Laura, for all that you've done we're forever grateful for your hard and continued work. And Laura, if you don't mind, you can show your plaque. We'll get you on
Trying
screen.
to.
When you
Yeah.
hold it, yeah, when you held it right there, we can see it.
There we go.
I love it.
There it is. I want to thank everybody for
Yeah.
appreciate it. I do thank you for this honor. I'm certainly in rare company, and I appreciate that. As John talked about, I've had a very long and meaningful career. I was the project director for just 5 years, and I came in with, I had some pretty big shoes to fill with an individual who was in the job for a long time, and that was a little bit of a challenge for me, but I think I kind of made it my own, and I know Marissa Band will make it her own as she steps into the role. But for many years, I was an attorney in the trenches. I worked with public benefits for a number of years and then came over to the disabilities law program. And I did a lot of systemic work, but I will tell you that, it's the individual cases are the ones that kind of stick in my head now that I reflect back and and the ones I won and the ones I lost. And when you work with individuals and get to know them, the people who are struggling with the disability and a lot of times poverty, it kind of moves you to want to do more. Another couple takeaways. One, the importance of relentless advocacy. I think that's our role. I think it's the role of a lot of people here, even if they work for the state. And I think developing relationships, very important. Partnerships, sometimes strange partnerships. If you're trying to get something done, that's essential. And also, a takeaway is that to recognize that disability crosses all ages and all groups. And at some point in your life, you will have a disability, you will have a loved one with a disability or a friend or a coworker, and it's part of life. Another fact is that most people want to live in the community and they have a civil right to do so. And most of them do live in the community. And you talk about the pandemic. I mean, that was one of the big early takeaways. And we started to get involved late 2020 and 21 was that people with disabilities living in community settings were not talked about, were not on the table at all. And that was something that had to be changed really quick. And that was a lot of education of people in pretty high places that this is, they were very focused on. They thought that they thought that people with disabilities lived in institutions, and part of that was a lack of data and a lack of understanding of how diverse the disability community is and where they are. So bear in mind as state agencies, if you all are still on the call, that it should be a part of your policy and budget decision that people want to live in the community and want in different types of settings, but they want to live in the community. And so it was a little bit of distress that I see that in the budget language this year, they gave more money to nursing homes than they did to the community in some of that epilogue language. That'll be the skunk here, but I saw that statistic and it upset me because, I mean, data-wise, there's over 16,000 people on DSHP Plus, and that doesn't include Disabilities clients, and it doesn't include clients who are on regular Medicaid who don't meet level of care for the waiver. So it's a much bigger number. On the other hand, we have 5,000 licensed nursing home beds, whether they're full or not, I don't know, and they're not on Medicaid beds, right? So there's still distortion in the way that the state approaches services for people with disabilities living in the community, in my opinion. And I get this opportunity now because I'm leaving and I can say what I want. I sort of feel that there's no state agency or even within a state agency, an individual or a group of individuals who own people, particularly adults with physical disabilities. And so the needs of that particular group are frequently not, even though their needs are profound as everybody else's, that they're not necessarily getting the amount of attention and advocacy that maybe that they need. And this is with absolutely no disrespect to DSAPD, because Division Director Smith does an awful lot with the little that she gets. And she has brought a lot of creativity to DSAPD's role, but she has a lot of things to focus on, and it's not her primary focus to develop creative new programs for adults with disabilities living in the community. she does her best. She does a great job, and I don't mean to disrespect her. The same for DMMA. Again, to Ted's point, has an incredibly monumental, complex program to run, and adults with disabilities is a segment of that, of his responsibility, but not his primary responsibility. And also, great deal of kudos to to DMMA for being willing to take advantage of federal waiver opportunities and expand services slowly, but to expand services for different groups of people. But again, nobody comprehensively advocating for people with adults with physical disabilities living in the community. So that's one of my themes here is I think, I don't know whether there needs to be a new division. I do not want another task force, please. No new task force for that. But some area where there can be some development of expertise and creativity that's specific to that group of people. Because I do feel like it's even though it's a really large group of people, it doesn't get all the attention it deserves. So speaking of task forces, I don't know how many the state needs to start dealing concretely and comprehensively with the crisis in community services. Particularly, I mean, it's all community services. I think, there's a bunch of different groups that are impacted more than others. A particular one that strikes me, that drives me a little bit around the bend is the lack of services for people with physical disabilities who have co-occurring mental illness. And it seems like nobody in the state is prepared to step in and serve them. I also really would think it would be tragic for the current state of community services, and particularly the chronic lack of coverage from home health services for so many families, adults and children alike. I would hate for that to be an accepted norm. That is something that has to be fought through and solved. And I would just reflect a little. I think the state has come a long way, or the department's come a long way in trying to address some of the siloing that people always talk about with the divisions. I think where you can still improve is how consumers approach your divisions, because I still think from a consumer perspective, the state is probably almost as siloed as it was when I started in 1989. But I think you'll get there. I think it's something that needs attention, because I think people, when we only hear about people who are having trouble, let's be honest, like, I'm at legal aid, people complain. Like, I don't hear all the happy stories. We always hear the things where things are not functioning well. And a lot of it is people being bewildered and not understanding what they need and where they can get it and how to coordinate it. So I hope that more attention is paid to that. So still a lot of work to be done. I'm sorry to go on a little soapbox, but I figured I had you all here, so I would do so. And I really do thank you for this honor. It's great.
We're so grateful for you, Laura.
Yeah, I'm really glad that we were able to do this today. I am, for myself, constantly in awe of everything you do. So thank you, Laura, and congratulations.
I just want to point out that I hope you're reading the chat, because people are sending you messages, Laura, and I don't want you to miss those beautiful, well-deserved congratulations.
Yep, and with that, that concludes our meeting. Thanks to all our policy friends, department heads, coming and sharing their perspective with us.
Our partners, we're grateful for our partners.
Yeah, very grateful, and thanks for a great virtual luncheon, quote unquote, and we'll look forward to the actual luncheon next year.
We're going to be in person.
Yep. Thank you all so much.
And again, congratulations, Laura.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can't
Thanks,
be
everyone.
said enough. Thank you.